He stopped replying, and somehow, even though you were the one left waiting, you still feel like the one who did something wrong. What happens in a man's mind when you go no contact? What does he think about in the silence you leave behind? Tonight, I want to take you there, not through textbooks, not through psychology, but through something much deeper, a mirror, a story, a voice that might feel like it knows too much about you, and too much about him. Because maybe you didn't walk away to punish him, you walked away to find yourself again. But even now, a part of you wonders, is he thinking about me? Does he care? Is he hurting too? And beneath those questions lies the real ache. Was any of it ever real? This video is not for everyone. It's for the woman who loved with all her depth, for the man who gave, then stayed silent, for the ones who are trying to heal, not just move on. And if that's you, stay. We're not just talking about what he thinks. We're entering the quiet corners of a mind he himself may not understand. And maybe, through that, you'll finally understand your own. Take a moment. Breathe. And if this voice already feels like a home you didn't know you missed, subscribe. Like. Come back when it hurts too much to make sense of anything. We're building a space here for souls who feel too much. Now, let's go into the silence he pretended not to feel. At first, he doesn't feel it. Not really. Not in the way you hope he does. When you go no contact, a man like him might initially feel something that looks like relief. Freedom, maybe. Space. He mistakes your silence for surrender. He assumes you're doing what women always do, walking away loud enough to be followed. But the follow never comes, because you weren't bluffing. And that's when it starts, not with a bang, but with confusion. A subtle rewiring of a pattern he didn't realize he relied on. The pattern of your presence. He reaches for his phone, thumb hovering over your name. Then he tells himself not to. Too soon, too obvious. Let her miss me. But beneath the ego is something else. Something older, something colder. A whisper he's ignored most of his life. She left because of you. He won't admit that yet. Instead, he scrolls. He swipes. He surrounds himself with noise. But silence doesn't care how loud the world island. It finds you, especially at night. That first night without your text, he barely notices. The second, he wonders if you fell asleep early. The third, he starts checking your last scene. The fourth, he's refreshing your feed, looking for signs of you that don't include him. That's when memory begins its cruel work. Not the sweet ones, no, those come later. First, it's the flashes he tried to ignore while he had you. The way your voice changed when you felt unloved. The way your eyes searched his face when he pulled away. The way you always forgave too quickly. And how, somehow, that forgiveness felt like guilt. He starts remembering you not as the woman who left, but as the woman he pushed. And even though he doesn't say it, he feels it. The shift. You're not angry. You're not begging. You're not even trying to show him what he lost. You're just gone. And that absence, it terrifies him, because he's built his life believing women like you don't stay gone. They cry. They plead. They wait. But you're not waiting. You're becoming. And that's where Carl Jung would gently place his hand on this man's shoulder, not to judge, but to show him something he's never dared to see. The shadow. That unspoken side of him, the part that needed your love to prove he was still lovable, the part that fed on your overgiving, to avoid confronting his own emptiness. You didn't just go no contact, you unknowingly took away his mirror, and now, for the first time, he has to face himself without your light softening the edges. He may not tell his friends, he might still post like he's fine, but beneath it all, a quiet storm is forming, because deep down, he knows. You were the safe place he never learned how to treat right. And safety, once lost, echoes louder than chaos. He tells himself, you'll come back. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But eventually, because that's how it's always worked in his world, people orbit him. They leave in anger, not in silence. They slam doors. They scream. They make scenes. They don't disappear like smoke, but you did. And that rewrote everything. He starts to notice strange things, not external, internal. He laughs less. He sleeps lighter. He checks his phone more often, but tells himself it's for work. He sees a girl at the bar who looks like you, and for a second, he forgets how to breathe. He remembers how you used to stand arms crossed, smile hiding a storm, when you tried to stay strong while falling apart. He remembers the last message you didn't send. He remembers the silence that followed his last careless word. And in that remembering, something shifts. He no longer sees you as the woman who asked for too much. He starts seeing you as the woman who stayed too long. And that's when guilt shows up. Not as a loud scream, but as a whisper when he's alone, as a replay of your pain in his dreams, as a weight in his chest when someone else calls his name and it doesn't sound like home. He tries to escape it. He distracts himself with women who don't ask for his soul, with nights that end in bodies but not connection, with laughter that echoes but never lands. But the silence you left behind, it's alive now. It breathes. It watches him. And every time he tries to outrun it, it gently reminds him, she didn't leave because she stopped loving you. She left because you never believed her love was real. The worst part, he starts to believe that maybe it wasn't love that left, but the only person who truly saw him. He scrolls through your old photos, looking for signs, for red flags he once dismissed as drama, for moments he now realizes were cries for help, and it crushes him, because you weren't asking for too much. You were asking to be chosen, to be claimed, to be understood without always having to explain. And he failed you, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how to care in a way that didn't cost you your peace. Now, you're gone. And in your absence, he meets the part of himself he spent years avoiding, the boy who was never taught how to love without fear, the man who learned to protect his ego, not his connection. And it hurts. Not in a dramatic, fall to his knees kind of way, but in quiet ways, subtle ways. He sees a quote on your story. It's not about him, but at Island. He hears your favorite song in a coffee shop, and for a moment, the whole room disappears. He smells your perfume on a stranger, and it's not just nostalgia, it's grief. Grief for the version of him you believed in. Grief for the softness he never let you hold. And still, haven't messaged you. Not yet, because he doesn't know if you'd respond. Because silence has made you powerful in a way his words no longer can reach. But he's thinking about you, more than you know, more than he lets on. And that voice in the back of his mind, the one he's spent years drowning out, is getting louder. She's not coming back, is she? Not this time. That's what the voice answers. And it's not cruel. It's calm, certain, like truth. When it finally stops apologizing, he doesn't realize it yet, but something sacred is happening. The pain that once felt like punishment, it's beginning to feel like a mirror, like consequence, like the ache that comes before real change. But change doesn't come easy to a man who's built himself around avoidance, who's worn detachment like armor, who learned, somewhere along the way, that needing someone meant weakness. You were never trying to break him, you were trying to meet him, but he made you feel like too much. So you gave less, then even less, until finally you gave nothing, and left everything. And now that he feels the vacuum of your absence, he realizes the price of your silence. Because it's not just quiet, it's sacred. It's a boundary he didn't believe you could hold, and it haunts him. He starts replaying the last moments over and over again. The last time you reached out, the way you worded it, soft but trembling. You still had hope in your voice. And he responded with cold logic. Distance, as if love was a contract and not a living thing. He regrets that now, not in a performative way, but in a bone-deep, stomach-sickening way. And for the first time, he doesn't just regret losing you. He regrets not knowing how to keep you. That's the moment the shift becomes irreversible. The moment he stops seeing you as the one who left and starts seeing himself as the one who let go. He watches your growth from afar, the subtle glow, the peace that isn't loud but sure. He notices how your words now carry weight, not the weight of pain, but of someone who knows who she is now. You don't chase. You don't explain. You don't try to prove your worth. You let the silence speak, and it speaks louder than any scream ever could. He starts comparing every new person to you, every laugh to the one you used to share, every quiet moment to the ones that didn't need filling. But no one feels like home, because no one knows him like you did. No one loved him past his layers. No one saw the scared child behind the man who pushes love away. And that's the part he can't shake, because he knows he'll find smiles again. He'll feel attraction again. But the kind of connection that holds up a mirror to your soul, that's rare. And he destroyed it, not in one big moment, but in 100 small ones. A missed call here, a dismissal there, an apology that came too late or never came at all. And now you're not just gone, you're healing. And he's only just beginning to feel what you carried all along. He doesn't know how to say sorry to a ghost, because that's what you've become to him now. Not a memory, not a fantasy, but a presence, one that lingers in places he never expected, like the back seat of his car where you once cried quietly, not wanting him to see how much it hurt, like the hallway where your shoes used to rest beside his, always slightly crooked, like you were never fully sure if you were allowed to stay. He sees those shoes now in his mind, not because he wants to remember, but because forgetting feels impossible. He thinks about reaching out. He even types the message once or twice, but the words betray him. They feel too small, too late. What do you say to someone who gave you every part of their heart and watched you guard your own like it was a vault? He could say he's sorry. He island, but it wouldn't undo the nights you waited, the mornings you woke up feeling unloved, the days you questioned your worth because he refused to show up. He thinks maybe time will fix it, but deep down, he knows time doesn't heal what pride destroys. So he sits with it and he waits, not for you to return, but for the ache to become manageable. But it doesn't, because when a man finally realizes what he had, it's rarely when he still has it. It's in the echo of her laugh he can't find anymore, in the softness of her eyes that used to forgive too easily, in the warmth of her hand he held too loosely. You, on the other hand, you're learning a new kind of silence, not the painful waiting kind, but the holy kind, the kind where peace lives, the kind where boundaries grow, the kind where you meet yourself in the quiet you used to fill with him. You've stopped wondering what he thinks. You've started asking what you feel, not what he feels about you, not what he might do, but what you deserve, what you desire, what no one ever gave you before you learned to give it to yourself. And as you stand there, in your own presence, whole, not seeking validation, not waiting to be seen, he finally sees you. Not the version he once shaped to fit his comfort, not the woman who dimmed her light to match his shadows, but the truth of you, untouched, unapologetic, unreachable. And it hits him. The worst kind of regret isn't about what we lost, it's about what we couldn't hold, because we never learned how. He thought love would be loud, dramatic, begging. He didn't realize it was the quiet commitment, the small showings up, the way you stayed through storms you didn't cause. And now that silence surrounds him, it doesn't feel like freedom anymore. It feels like consequence. Somewhere in the stillness, he starts to whisper your name. Not aloud, not yet, but in his mind, the way people speak to ghosts they still believe might come back. And that name, your name, doesn't sound like possession anymore. It sounds like reverence. He wonders if you still think of him, not because his ego needs it, but because his soul aches to believe that some part of you might still remember the parts of him that were soft. Not perfect, not consistent, but soft. He remembers the way you used to look at him, like even his darkness was worthy of being loved. He didn't believe you then. He does now, but now there's no one there to believe in him. Not like you did. That's the punishment, really. Not your silence, but his clarity, because once a man truly sees the woman who loved him, after he's already broken her, no distraction is ever enough again. He could kiss 10 mouths, drink 10 bottles, make 10 promises to someone new, but your absence sits beside him like a second skin. It wraps around him when he's alone, and it speaks. You gave him a chance to meet himself. He ran. Now he sits in the wreckage of that escape. And you are not angry anymore. You are sacred distance. You are the woman who no longer over-explains, who no longer bleeds just to prove you feel. Your softness didn't die. It just found a home that wasn't him. And that is the grief he cannot outrun. He thought he had time. He thought the door would always be cracked open. He thought your love was permanent, no matter how temporary his efforts were. He was wrong. And now, when he stares into the mirror, it's not his face he avoids. It's the reflection of the man who let real love walk away. He never got to say goodbye, but you did. You said it in every moment you chose peace over proving, in every text you didn't send, in every night you let your pillow hold the pain he didn't. Your goodbye wasn't loud. It was holy. It was the kind that doesn't need a send-off, because it's not the end of love. It's the beginning of self. And he knows, deep in the hollow space where your presence used to be, he knows, no one will ever unsee him the way you did. and still choose to stay, until he gave you no choice but to go. Now, there's a quiet moment in his day, a stretch of stillness where he used to find you. He doesn't post about it. He doesn't tell his friends. But it's there, every single day. The space you used to fill with little things, the how was your day, the comfort of being known without having to perform, the laughter that came from your soul, not from trying to impress. At first, he didn't understand why it haunted him. He thought he missed the attention, the routine, the comfort. But over time, he realized, he missed you, not the idea, not the version he sculpted in his head, but the real, raw, radiant you. The you who held his hurt like it was your own. The you who bent just to keep the connection alive. The you who stayed until it cost your dignity. He thinks about the way you used to soften your voice when he was angry, how you'd give him space, even when you were the one breaking inside. And now, as the silence settles deeper into his bones, he wonders how many times he mistook your gentleness for weakness. Too many, far too many. And maybe that's what really breaks him. Not that you're gone, but that you were always there. When he was inconsistent, you were steady. When he shut down, you leaned in. When he blamed, you reflected. And when he finally pushed too far, you didn't retaliate. You just released. He imagines what it would feel like to tell you everything now, to finally say, I get it. I get why you left. I get what I couldn't see. I get that I wasn't ready. But he knows that moment isn't owed anymore, because you didn't leave to punish him. You left to return to yourself, to the version of you that doesn't shrink for love. And it's beautiful. The way you're blooming now. He watches quietly. He notices how your smile has changed. It's less performative, less hopeful for someone else's approval. It's yours now, fully. And still, he wants to reach out. He wants to say, I didn't know how to love you right, but I wanted to. Yet even that feels selfish, because wanting to isn't the same as choosing to. And he didn't choose you when it mattered, so he stays silent. And you keep walking, not away from him, but toward everything you buried for the sake of almost love. The poetry, the laughter, the peace, the way you hold yourself now. It's not armor, it's arrival. You are not healing because of his absence. You're healing because of your own presence. And that is the truth that will echo in his mind, far longer than your footsteps ever could. He dreams about you sometimes now. Not the wild, romantic kind of dreams, the quiet ones, the kind that feel so real he wakes up with your name aching in his throat. You're not reaching for him in the dream. You're not asking for anything. You're just there, smiling in the way you used to, when you were still trying to believe you were enough. And in those dreams, he always thinks he has one more chance to say it, to hold you, to finally meet you where you've always stood. Patient, open, soft. But dreams fade, and he wakes up alone, not just alone in his bed. Alone in the parts of himself he used to hand to you in pieces, expecting you to assemble him. And maybe that's the most devastating part. Not that you're gone, but that he's still here, unchanged in the ways that mattered. See, people think the pain hits the moment you leave, but it doesn't. The pain hits when your absence becomes familiar, when the silence stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like truth. Because the truth is, he never really saw you until you disappeared. Not because you were invisible, but because he was too blind to look beyond what you gave and into why you gave it. He remembers now. The way you'd ask questions that held more love than his answers did. The way your body tensed when you felt unsafe but still stayed. The way you never asked for more, just the bare minimum. You hoped would finally feel like enough. It never did. Because love isn't about presence alone. It's about the quality of it, and his presence. It was scattered, conditional, caged. You needed a man who could hold your softness, without cutting it open. He needed a woman to prove he wasn't empty. Neither of you were wrong for needing, but you were wrong for thinking you could meet in the middle, while one of you kept bleeding. Now, he watches as you reclaim your voice, not to shout, but to sing. You don't talk about him anymore, at least not where he can hear it. But your silence says enough. You've rewritten yourself. And in doing so, you've become unreachable in the most holy way. Not because you're punishing him, but because you finally see some people don't deserve front row seats to the healing they delayed. And though he might one day whisper your name again into someone else's chest, searching for what once made him feel safe, it won't be you, because you're not a memory, you're a lesson. And some lessons don't return. They only transform. He doesn't even remember the last time he truly laughed. Not the performative kind, not the kind he puts on in a group of people where his smile is timed and his eyes stay empty. But the kind of laugh that once slipped from his lips when he was lying next to you, the two of you tangled up in nothing but breath and presence. That's what he misses the most, maybe. The version of himself that only existed when he was with you. Not the confident one, not the one who had it all together, but the one who was allowed to not know, to soften, to breathe. You never asked him to be perfect. You just asked him to be real, to show up with his mess, so you didn't feel alone in yours. But he didn't know how, and now he doesn't know how to forget the way you never stopped trying to love him anyway. He hears your words in his mind sometimes, the ones you whispered when you thought he wasn't listening. I just want us to feel like home. And God, he didn't get it then, but he does now, because nothing feels like home anymore. Not the arms he falls into when the silence gets too loud, not the apartment that still smells like the soap you picked out, not the playlists he used to skip, but now plays just to feel you closer. He wants to reach out. He almost does, but he's stopped himself so many times. The silence between you feels like an ocean he can't cross without drowning, not because you're angry, but because you're free. You've stopped waiting for closure, stopped looking for signs, stopped hoping he'd show up. As the man he only knew how to be when you were doing all the emotional lifting, you've built peace, brick by brick, tear by tear. And he knows. His words can't knock it down anymore, because now you know what you're worth, in a way that doesn't depend on being loved by someone else. And that's the final blow. Not your absence, not your silence, but your wholeness. The fact that you're not broken, the fact that your voice no longer trembles, the fact that you found yourself in the exact place he tried to leave you behind. So he walks through his days now with a quiet ache, one he doesn't mention, one he can't explain, because how do you grieve someone who still exists but no longer needs you? He scrolls past your pictures, he stares at the screen, his thumb pauses over the message box, but he knows this isn't a love story anymore. It's a growth story, and this chapter doesn't have him in it.